The calmest person you know probably isn't calm by nature. Most people assume calm means nothing ever gets to them. That's backwards. Real calm usually comes from someone who used to react to everything and slowly learned not to. Here's what that actually looked like before it became calm. Think of the calmest person in your life. The one who doesn't raise their voice, doesn't spiral, doesn't take the bait when things get tense. The one who can sit through an argument without needing to win it or even needing to be right. People often assume they were just born that way. Naturally relaxed, naturally unbothered, wired differently from everyone else. That's rarely the actual story. More often, that person used to be the opposite. Reactive, easily hurt, quick to spiral over a tone, a comment, a silence that felt like rejection. Maybe they used to replay arguments for days, rehearsing what they should have said instead. Maybe a single criticism could ruin their entire week, circling back to it long after everyone else had moved on. Somewhere along the way, something changed. Not their personality. Their relationship with their own reactions. Reaction itself is still there, somewhere. It just no longer runs the whole show automatically. That change is called healing, and it's a lot more work than people give it credit for. Most people picture healing as something soft, gentle, something that happens quietly on its own. Like a wound that just closes over time if you leave it alone long enough. In reality, healing usually starts with a period of feeling everything far more intensely, not less. Before someone becomes calm, they often go through a phase of noticing every trigger for the first time. Every old wound gets touched, examined, felt fully, sometimes for the first time in years. This can look like more crying, more anger, more visible emotion, not less, for a stretch of time. Picture someone starting therapy after years of pushing everything down. The first months are rarely calm. They're often the most emotionally loud months of that person's life. That part isn't calm at all. It's often the loudest, messiest chapter of the whole process. The calm comes after, as a result of going through that, not around it. Skipping that chapter doesn't get you to calm faster. It usually just delays it and buries it deeper. Think about what it actually takes to stop reacting to things that used to set you off completely. You have to notice the trigger. You have to feel the urge to snap, or spiral, or shut down, and not immediately obey it. You have to sit in that uncomfortable gap between the feeling and the reaction, over and over, until it gets easier. That takes an enormous amount of practice, and an enormous amount of failed attempts along the way. Maybe the first 100 times, you still snapped anyway, and felt embarrassed about it afterward. Maybe it took years of catching yourself a beat too late before you started catching yourself in time. Nobody becomes calm by deciding to be calm one day. They become calm through hundreds of moments of choosing differently than their instinct wanted them to. Here's what almost nobody explains about that process. The calm you see in someone isn't the absence of feeling. It's the presence of having felt everything already and learned that it doesn't have to control what happens next. A calm person isn't unbothered. They're just no longer afraid of their own reactions. They know what anger feels like in their body. They've felt it fully, probably many times, and survived every single time it happened. They know what heartbreak feels like, what humiliation feels like, what rejection actually does to a person. They just don't need it to run the show anymore. That's a completely different thing. Someone simply suppressing everything and calling it peace isn't the same. Suppressed calm and healed calm can look identical from the outside. Both involve a quiet exterior, a steady voice, a face that doesn't give much away. But underneath, they're built entirely differently. Suppressed calm is a lid pressed down hard on something still boiling underneath it. It costs energy to maintain. And it usually cracks eventually, often at the worst possible moment. Healed calm doesn't require that kind of effort, because there's nothing being held down anymore. The reaction was actually processed, not just hidden behind a calm expression. One way to tell the difference is what happens under real pressure. Suppressed calm breaks under enough weight, because it was never actually resolved, just contained. Healed calm bends without breaking, because the underlying charge that used to fuel the reaction isn't there anymore. Another way to tell the difference is what happens afterward, once the pressure passes. Suppressed calm often leaves someone drained, replaying the moment, quietly resentful about what they held back. Healed calm tends to just move on, because there was nothing left over to carry out of the room. This is why some people can absorb criticism without spiraling, while others explode or shut down completely. It's rarely about who cares less. It's rarely even about who is naturally stronger or more patient. It's usually about who has done more work to understand what's actually happening inside them when it hits. So what actually builds this kind of calm, practically speaking? It starts with getting familiar with your own triggers, instead of being surprised by them every time. Noticing the specific things that used to set you off and asking what they're actually connected to underneath. Often a present-day trigger is really an old wound getting touched again, dressed up as something new. A comment about being late might not really be about being late at all, if being criticized once meant something far bigger. Recognizing that pattern takes away some of its power almost immediately. It also involves practicing the pause on purpose, in small, low-stakes moments before trying it in big ones. Noticing the urge to react and letting a few seconds pass before deciding what to actually do with it. Even counting silently to 5 before responding can be enough to interrupt the automatic reaction. That pause is where calm actually gets built, one small moment at a time. It also means learning something else. Your worth doesn't depend on how someone else behaves toward you. A lot of reactivity comes from taking things personally that were never really about you at all. Once your sense of self stops depending on other people's moods, their behavior has far less power to shake you. None of this happens quickly. Calm is usually the visible result of years of invisible work most people never see. The version of that person before they were calm probably looked a lot like you might feel right now. Reactive. Tired of spiraling. Wondering if this is just who they are. Wondering if everyone else somehow got a calmer nervous system while they stayed stuck in overdrive. It wasn't who they were. It was just where they were, in the middle of a process that hadn't finished yet. It was just where they were, in the middle of a process that hadn't finished yet. If you're someone who still reacts intensely to things, that doesn't mean you're behind or broken, or missing something others have. It might just mean you're earlier in a process that calm people have already been through. The reactivity you're feeling now could be the exact same stage the calmest person you know once stood in. They just had a head start you didn't get to see, because by the time you met them, the work was already done. Healing isn't instant, and it isn't linear. It doesn't always feel peaceful while it's happening. Sometimes it feels like everything is getting louder before it finally gets quieter. That's not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's often a sign the actual work is happening. If you've been comparing your reactivity to someone else's calm, remember you're not seeing their whole story. You're only seeing the finished result of a process that was messy, slow, and invisible for a long time. Calm isn't a personality trait some people are simply born with and others aren't. It's not luck, and it's not a gift handed to some people and withheld from others. It's evidence of healing, built one uncomfortable pause at a time. And it's available to you too, exactly the same way it became available to them. If this explains something you've never had words for, you're far from the only one carrying this. Somewhere, someone reactive and exhausted is watching this exact video, wondering if calm is even possible for them. Subscribe if this explains something you've never had words for. And next time, we'll talk about what that first uncomfortable pause actually looks like in practice.